We're looking at the principles, the portfolio management principles. Number 1, senior management commitment. Number 2, governance alignment. Number 3, strategy alignment. Number 4, portfolio office. Now, I think we say in MOP, this doesn't need to be a formal function. It can be a virtual function. I think that was a kind of, I think something we had to say because people were saying, well, otherwise, people say you're arguing for lots of resources. I'm arguing not for a lot of resources. I'm saying, start small with a portfolio office, but you need to have someone or some function that exists to provide the information, to collect the information, to manage the process over a period of time. Otherwise, it's very difficult for it to be sustainable. Individuals get diverted. People come on training courses, they have lots of good ideas. They go back to the real world and suddenly other stuff intervenes and the change they meant to see happen never happens. So it's important to have a portfolio office. There's the MOP quote there. To manage the investment process, the alignment, prioritisation, selection, and so forth on behalf of senior management. So it's very important that we have that. But fundamentally, San Retner here. San Retner is a practitioner, he's an American. He was one of the editors of that book I showed you earlier, the Project Portfolio Management, the one with the 10 authors, the 9 American, 1 UK, non-American, that was me, but San was one of the American authors of that book, and he's a major portfolio manager, managed lots of big portfolios in the private sector, both in the United States and in Australia. And he makes this point about programs must be actively managed. That word again, active. And the portfolio management office must be seen as change agents and contributors capable of acting as conductors who help teams meet corporate goals, not as just overseers relegated to reporting and reviewing schedules. Because quite often, and the other guy I mentioned, Anand Sanwal from American Express, he came to our function, to one of our conferences, and he said, all your red, amber, green charts are worthless. All your reports to your governance bodies are worthless until the money flows in a different direction. That McKinsey research. Until you start reallocating money, what's the point? And this is what San Retner is saying. You've got to make a difference in the real world. This is not just about producing bits of paper that go up to the board, that get rubber stamped, and then nothing ever changes. So McKinsey, they say, remaking. That research I mentioned about McKinsey, about only 1/3 of the companies actually reallocate the money. One of their solutions, and I think there were 4 main solutions, but one of them was this, remaking the corporate centre so it can provide more independent counsel. That's the PMO, guys. That's what the PMO exists to do. This is why it's so, the portfolio management, for me, is probably the sexiest, most fun, most exciting job. But it's also the most challenging. And you have, I've experienced that, you have the highs and plenty of the lows, but it's the challenge that makes it enjoyable. And here's an example. This was the portfolio office that I ran, the portfolio management office in criminal justice. And what we said broadly was you've got 2 functions. One is this investment management function. So we're looking at trying to determine which projects and programs we should invest in, which ones should we continue to invest in. I don't know how many projects and programs should be stopped, but it's always got to be more than 0. But the point is we don't want to keep starting projects and then stopping them, stopping them. Part of the job of the portfolio office is to make sure we invest in the right projects and then that we give them resources and we give them the guidance so they actually do deliver, so they understand what the expectations are on them. So it was about agreed investment criteria, so everyone knew what the criteria, they knew where the baseline was, what they had to achieve, and making sure our funding allocations remain aligned with our strategic priorities. But there was also what's called a value management value management office function, which is about managing benefits. And so at least half our function then was looking at the strategic impacts, the return on investment of our portfolio as a whole, so that we knew our numbers. Looking at, challenging, being that independent counsel, being a critical friend to the project and programs, which means we weren't always the most loved people, but it's a necessary function. It's a challenge. Looking at business cases, asking your questions that need to be asked, but asking them up front, not after investment. After investment, it's just too late. I should say this function won the Civil Service Award in the UK in 2007, had a Gartner case study, had an OECD framework, EU, European Commission report referred to the work that we did. So it's trying to look at from the investment management perspective, but also what's called a value management perspective. John Thorpe in Canada came up with this idea of a value, instead of a PMO, he said we need to have a value management office. So you're not managing, your focus isn't on delivery of projects and programs, it's delivery of the right projects and programs to achieve the outcomes that are important or relate to our strategic objectives.